This submission for the 100-day art challenge is going to be a person who I've never met, and just someone who I saw on an account on Instagram called Earth's World. Fantastic account. I credit them when I submit pieces using their references, and they're aware of it. They like it. They like my pieces. I've done it tons of times, and it's because they photograph people at state fairs, and the images are so interesting to me because the personality of the subject of the photograph is always curious. It's always someone who looks as though they are, weather worn and experienced. They're a worker, and they just look like a character out of a story, out of some fictionalized story, in a good way, like some interesting person who had just come along and advanced the tale in some way. And I quite like scraggly hair and beards when it comes to drawing or painting men, so this character was someone who just jumped out at me when I saw their account on Instagram. And you can see the colours there on the right. That is my palette for my oil pastels. This is a set which I inherited from someone. They passed it along, and I have been getting the benefit since. And I have quite a few oil pastel sets which have been gifted to me from older people who either gave up on them, or sadly they lost the person who was the artist and then wanted the materials to be used by someone who is interested and keen in using things like this. And I think that if you've seen how many oil pastel portraits and drawings I've done, or paintings I've done, you will agree that I definitely have a keen interest in using this medium. And first thing that I do is I go in with a dark colour. This is going to be a consistent thing that you notice with my later submissions using oil pastels, and I've found that if you put down the dark colour first, it gives you a blending advantage later. So I usually look at the photographic reference and decide what colour will describe the darker tones in this person's skin or beneath this person's skin tone, in order to be layered and blended in with lighter colours afterwards. And once I've identified something I think is close enough, that's what I'll lay down, because then you can put other colours on top, lighter tones and things which really blend well with that darker colour, in order to develop the piece and make it become something which has texture, tone and the description of this person that you are studying. So for this one, it starts off with a very dark brown, and then I go into a deep yellow, and at this point now I'm laying down a fairly light pink. And it's nice when you can blend these things this way, and I've just put in a white, and you can see there already it goes from brown, dark yellow, pink to white, and now I'm getting down a very dark very deep pink, which is very strong. Again, it's getting down the darkest colour that can describe this point on the person's face. And you'll find around the cheeks and the nose and the ears, you usually get warmer tones, more red colours occur there. Whereas on the forehead, it can be less pink and less red. But it depends on the person. It's not always the case, but I've noticed that it happens often enough where the highlight of the colour application will occur around the nose, the ears and the cheeks. And that's what I'm doing here, is trying to get down a dark colour and then blend it with mid-tones and light. So the medium pink, the white, and then getting in some subtle marks for the eyes and the nose. And straight away I think it starts to have quite interesting definition. Oil pastels are quite blunt instruments. You can see there the ones just hanging off the edge of the tin. They don't have sharp edges at all. They're very rounded, they're very squared. They're not really got any sharp points in order to draw detail. But if you draw with them enough and get down enough tone, then it will partly sharpen an edge, and nothing too sharp, but it's enough where it's something which you can start to slide it along in order to get a thinner mark and describe something a little bit less blunt than the rest of the image, but I don't mind these big blunt images. It's almost like painting with a broad brush, and some of those paintings are some of my favourites from the past and present, because they can be so expressive, and that's the way that you really push things into the portraits or landscape paintings that you don't get from a photograph or just from your vision. You get it from experience. It's something big, it's something passionate, and something which really speaks of the human experience beyond just a photographic image. And I do love photographs, so I'm not trying to talk them down, but I think that we are trying to achieve different things. One is trying to get as realistic a copy as possible, and the other is trying to express the feelings and the life and the personality that the artist can inject into the subject from their own interpretation and choices that they make. And I don't know if you can see it, but I really enjoy this type of description that occurs here, because the dark yellow, the light yellow and the white, along with the grey, they really communicate something very strongly and very well in my view. Getting down an orangey red down at the bottom, because that's where the shadow collects. You can soften it there with a bit of white, but it still should be darker than points on the face, and it communicates that light is not hitting that point as strongly as the other parts of the portrait. And then a nice light colour for the shirt, a nice light blue, and it's all just something which complements each other, because the blue is a cool colour and the rest are very warm tones. This then complements the rest of the tones I've put down, and it's served by the reference. It's not a choice that I made necessarily, it's what was in the photograph. So sometimes I will make a colour choice if I feel it's better served by the colour theory or the complementary on the opposite end of the colour wheel, but other times it's just there for you to use as it is. And once I've got to this point, I'm quite happy that it's almost done. I'm just making a few finishing touches from some final observations of the reference to make sure that nothing is too flat and it's given a little bit of dimension here and there. But that to me is a very pleasant and satisfying oil pastel portrait of a real character somewhere in America at a state fair. So there it is, some scraggly haired, long bearded chap, just adding a little bit of warmth and nuance to his nose, because there's always something you can touch up on, and underneath the eyelids there. But yeah, very enjoyable. I love doing these, and there are lots of them, so I hope you're not getting too bored, because there are a few more of these. But I appreciate you watching. If you try these yourself, then please leave me a comment, or if you have any questions, put it down in the comment section and I will respond as soon as possible. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you try this for yourself.